Good evening. Welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Caleb and Andrew Elt, how are you?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm happy to have you on. Been a fan of you for a long time. As I was saying earlier, when your earlier stuff when you were in Sleeze Beez, but now I've come across some of your newer stuff also.
Hmm.
7 Miles Pittsburgh. So we'll talk about all of it today.
Cool.
But let's talk about. I want to actually talk about some of the new stuff first. Then we'll Sleeze Beez questions afterwards. But let's talk about these past couple years. You actually Walter Trout also, right? Are you still doing stuff with Walter Trout?
I actually recently just stopped working with Walter after
Okay.
22 years as his tour manager. Um, yeah, it was just time. It was just getting to be too much. Uh, I don't know. No, I'm not saying too much work because I'm not worried about working hard, but it got to the point where it was getting a little bit ridiculous as far as schedules and stuff. And I'm just like, you know what? I'd rather, sing myself, play guitar myself, and if I'm gonna bust my balls, I might as well
Yeah.
do it.
Do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have a strong voice, and I mean, people go online and just look up your name on YouTube. There's so many videos out there if you sing and just all kinds of music, not just cover songs, your own stuff, different bands. I mean, you sing everything.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's almost a shame for you not to be performing, actually, because
Yeah, yeah,
you still have the voice. You still have the voice. You can do it,
yeah.
and
I'm
most
lucky
artists
that
can't do it nowadays.
I'm lucky I still have it, man. And while it's there, I might as well make good use of it. As much as I can, as much as possible. But yeah, like I said, I've got that Led Zeppelin band that I've been working with for nearly 15 years now, and we play a lot with that band
Yeah,
live. And
it's
and
physical graffiti that people don't aren't aware of that.
yeah, they might not be aware of it because I mean, there's so much going on nowadays. I mean, back in the day, it was, there's a record company and even they had rosters that were jam packed, as you know, with artists, but still nothing compared to what's out there right now. I mean, you got to be
Right.
really on to keep up with who's doing what, where, when, and how.
I think it's going to filter out though. I think because a lot of the performers are not, and I say newer, not like get off my lawn type of thing. They're on Instagram, but they're not performing in clubs. They're not putting in the sweat, and they're not playing real instruments as much. And they're not, you know what I'm saying? I
Yeah,
think
yeah, there's a lot of
I think
that
it's the
too.
cream is going to kind of rise to the top because eventually people are going to be like, I just want to see a live show. I don't
Yeah.
want to. I could do everything on Netflix or something. You know what I'm saying? I want to see live music. I want to see performers sing.
There's a lot in Europe. Obviously, that's where I live, and in Holland is there's a lot of there's still a lot of there's a big live music scene. The shift, unfortunately, has
Mhm.
moved to tribute and cover bands over here. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous. Point where you're playing 500-600 seat clubs, selling them out with a covers band, and then you try and I mean, and then here we go. The schizophrenic part of me is that I try and get a gig with my own band, 7 Miles to Pittsburgh, and we pull 30 people, because nobody's heard of them.
yeah.
It's just the way things have evolved over here, but I mean, there's still hope. I mean, there's still the urge and the want for live music, which is a good thing.
I think it's the same here as far as the live, the cover band thing. I mean, I think especially if you're a band, like I feel like this thing is now is if you're a band, you do original music, and you're not like huge, you do corporate gigs too because that's where the bread and butter comes in. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where the money is. Because people like to know what they're familiar with. That's like a human thing that people just love to be comfortable. Whereas you get the diehard fans, you know,
Mm-hmm.
want to hear new stuff,
That's
and
true.
that's where you get your clear
Die-hard fans
people.
are dying out.
Yeah, they are, and it was weird because there's been a weird resurgence because like remember like and this is it perfect like when Sleeze Beez came out and that was our age group and all the bands and rock bands and then there was a dip besides like the 2000s and grunge and everything. Then we started going back up again with all the festivals and stuff because I think the expendable money in the age group, everyone's got the kids are in college, whatever. They want to go back out and see their bands, their live music again. And it's allowing those artists to go out and play tours or do some shows and do some music because that there is some fan base, but it's getting old and it's gonna
The older,
dwindle off
yeah,
again.
the older fan base, the fanatical older fan base, they have
Right.
that disposable income uh, to uh, to afford to go to see live music, and to be honest with you, that's probably the most people in the audience are that that age group. There's,
Yeah,
back when I was out with Sleeze Beez and the '80s, '90s and stuff, there was the young people came to gigs. You didn't see older people, and with all respect, those young people are old now, but still young at heart, I guess. That's why they want to go to shows. But the kids, young kids now, they don't really have a music scene that they can hold on to or grasp or get into. It's just not there anymore. It's just really a bit of this, a bit of that, a lot of that, none of this. It's just there's no real. You can't really put your finger on a certain thing that's come around, like back in the '80s with rock, '70s
totally.
even. Just there was a huge live scene and a big audience, but it's not there anymore.
There's this thing locally here. I'm in New England, and somebody just posted they had a show, a 3 day concert, and it got canceled because it got smaller and smaller because no one's going to go to it. The
Mhm.
irony is, it's music from like the younger generation now of rock bands. I don't know what genre would be called. It's not rock. It's not metal. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to call it the bands with names because I don't listen to them as much. But I would have gone to this show. But whereas rock bands from our age group and up are doing fine here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're
that's
actually coming and playing.
that they still have that audience from then.
Yeah. But the younger bands don't have that audience anymore. Like it's not the same. It's a weird rock group. It's not as loyal. It's weird to see that just happen.
I just I look at my son who is now the age I was back when I was in the middle of all that, and he listens and goes to bands from the '90s, the noughties, rock bands,
Yeah.
because like you said, they're still going out there, and he still has a chance to go see them. It's strange. There's not. I mean, yeah, there's bands, in the niche markets, like in metal, there's so many different labels,
Right.
not record labels, but there's new metal,
Yeah.
there's this metal, that metal, whatever. But that still seems to be well, it's kind of an underground thing, I think, and it's very specialist. They bypass
Well,
all the stuff, and yeah,
well, that's the group of people. It sounds like one of the groups of a lot of the artists that are were trying to do the festival here, but they couldn't sell tickets. There's like one or two bands that were pretty big that I would have seen one of them, but like all of them, I'm like I don't know any of their songs. I know the bands. I'm not like you know, but none of them was like a draw. None of them had a history. None of them, and we have other bands, folk music, blues music. Those
yeah,
festivals, we still have those. Those will sell out. Those will be 3 days here. At that one genre of like weird metal, that
yeah.
that age group is just never stuck to it for some reason. It just never,
Yeah. I think it all,
it
how the the industry and the business has moved and shifted, and selling records. People don't sell records anymore. There's no reason for a radio station to promote a band that's coming into town. You remember how that used
oh
to
yeah,
be. Here,
totally.
here comes this band, and they'll play your record on the radio, and you go to the radio station, you do an interview, and then the club would sell out. Now, I mean, in the States, I guess it's all it is satellite radio with these playlists. It's
Mhm.
just and it's just a playlist, songs that you've heard a million times. Um, there, same over here in Europe. The radio doesn't really play that music anymore. That as a band coming to town, we're going to play, or a band has a new album out. No, they don't play it.
Yeah,
You just play the old
it's hard to
stuff.
tell who's playing. I don't even know who's coming. I do a show, talk to hundreds.
That's your medium right now for checking out who's coming into town. But that's the equivalent of you know hit parade or a metal edge back in the day. But instead of it being a little magazine, 20
Yeah,
page, like a Bible that comes out every week. Try and find through all the BS that's on
on
Facebook
there.
and who's what, where, and when.
If someone was first coming in, what would you say? Describe it to somebody, get them into your music. Just 7 miles.
The stuff I'm doing, or the
Yeah,
newer. Yeah, well,
either way.
7 miles to Pittsburgh is it's a collaboration between three musicians, myself and one of the guitar player and the bass player. And the guitar player and bass player, they kind of come from a prog background,
Hmm.
meaning they're much better musicians than I'll ever be. That
And the songs are longer. And the songs are longer. I like
way
prog too, but they're way long.
they're okay right now, but when the initial ideas were pitched to me, it was like, really, I have to wait a minute and a half until the keyboard solo is finished, and then I can start singing. Yeah. No, joking aside, they had there were some really good ideas, but I just wasn't ready to prog. I mean, I
Yeah,
love huge Rush fan. I love that, but they can do shorter songs, or shorter
yeah,
songs within their arrangements, whatever. But there's melody in there. There's stuff. So I pitched that to them. I said, okay, is it okay if I, cut and paste these and just arrange it so that
yeah.
it will. And they just gave me carte blanche, and so that's how that kind of came together. And you can, I mean, it's definitely got that proggy, 7/8 vibe to it. You count, and then when am I going to start singing and stuff? But I managed to kind of concise it to, um, the audible songs with good hooks and a
Yeah.
good chord. That it's a far cry from Sleeze Beez.
It
I mean,
is.
it has,
But being a lot older and growing, it's nice to have two or three different choices to hear your voice because it's almost
yeah,
a different voice.
yeah. I didn't want to. And to each his own. But I didn't want. I still don't want to fall back into something that I've done in the past. I mean,
No.
you I'm not that I'm not proud of it, but it's just that I don't want to get stuck in the past personally, musically. If I have an opportunity to, I mean, it's still rock, right? I mean,
Right.
that's where I'm not going to go sing, you know, Vegas style all of a sudden, but it's it appealed to me because it was different. And
Hmm.
that's the problem with that is that not a lot of record companies are really interested because they just want something that's instantly sellable. They all go like, yeah, this sounds great, but do you have anything that sounds a little more like Sleaze Beez? And I'm like, no, not really. You want to
Well,
hear
they
that?
also
The
no.
albums.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, and I think, and I was like with Sleeze Beez was that I've been out that the record labels were trying to make bands sound a certain way anyhow because you could hear sort of the sound if you guys change a little bit,
Yeah,
and you feel like they always want a sound of a certain band anyhow, so they're never happy. I think
yeah,
the labels want a turnkey operation where they kind of come in. You're like, I've got my Instagram, I've got my followers, I've got my audience. The
yeah.
albums are recorded. Basically, I need you to distribute it and then take all my money. Is really what it comes down to for most labels at this point. There's not a lot of
Well, yeah, because
A&R work.
they're not really pushing, for lack of a better phrase, they can't push product. I mean, what are they going to sell? A new band comes out, they, sells a couple of thousand albums. I mean, back in the day, if you sold, a couple of 100,000 albums, you'd be out on the street. That wasn't enough, but there was
Yeah.
product to sell and there was money to invest. Nowadays, the record companies, physical record companies, aren't going to sell anything, so they're not really going to invest. Uh, in something new. We went through the whole phases, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s of here comes something new. Oh, let's give it a try because I mean, record companies had money in the bank,
Yeah.
So, but now it's like, yeah, but you need to sound like this, otherwise we won't sell enough, records to make a living. And I get it. That's the whole reason why with 7 Miles to Pittsburgh, I didn't even bother going to a record company. I said, let's just do this ourselves. I mean,
Yeah.
we didn't have to pay for studio times because I mean, that's another thing of today, with the digital
That
stuff
yeah.
and have a little studio. Um, and we just did it on our own and we invested, a couple of grand and that was it. And we brought out a record and we made a return. We sold 1,000 records, CDs, whatever.
Yeah.
And we got our money back. So, okay, let's do another one. And, and that's kind of liberating in a way too, as in there's not that much pressure on you as a
Yeah.
musician and total freedom to do what the hell you want without anybody, unless it's within the band,
Well, I
And
mean, yeah.
that's even though you're not gonna make any money on it, it's just liberating again to make something that is musically pure. It
Right.
has nothing to do with anything else. We got to sell this, we got to promote that, we got to do this. This is your deadline. No, this is what we do, and it's for the music. It's great, man. If I mean, it doesn't. You don't make any money, but there's other means and other ways of doing that.
Well, your skill set at this point too. I mean, obviously being a tour manager, being in a band through all the garbage of the '80s and '90s, the stuff you've learned. You know what I mean? Already been in
Yeah,
the studio a bunch of times. I mean, you have so much experience going into it. It would almost
yeah,
be ridiculous to have somebody tell you come in at 20 years old, telling you what you need to
yeah.
do, and you're like, I've done it all. I could probably teach everybody here class.
Yeah, and
You know
it's
what I'm
not.
saying?
Yeah, it's that too, it doesn't mean I'm not. I won't. I'm not open to suggestions, but it's just it's tough out there, being a musician. I mean, I see it in my son, and he's trying his damnedest to do something, but I'm lucky I can compare it to when I was growing up, and it's
Yeah.
just a totally different ball game right now, and so with that in mind, I don't want to stay with one foot in the past. I just want to evolve, just because there's no use in trying desperately to cling on to something that isn't there anymore. As far as making albums and selling albums, I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, performing. There's a lot of bands out there, doing great now again. Um, but that's on a bigger level. That's on a stadium level or whatever.
Well, and I think the thing is like, it's not if it's something you enjoy as an artist. I don't think it's saying in the past. I think if you have to do it because as an artist, like say you couldn't get a gig doing anything else, like you were like the only way people even look at me is if I do Sleeze Beez, and then you're trying to copy that. Then you're
Yeah,
stuck in the past. But if you're like, this is who I am, because you're doing
yeah,
ACDC, you're doing stuff. This is who you are. You're a rocker, and these are songs you write, whether it sounds like that or sounds like 7 Miles. That's not being in the past. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you're not forced into it. It's when there's some artists that can't do anything. They're trapped. Their sound, they can't. You know what I mean? They've tried and they get
yeah.
destroyed.
And
They can't.
and
They can't survive.
and that's cool too. I mean, it's cool if you just keep doing what you do, and you're dedicated to it and whatever. I just think sometimes it's sad when you see some acts, and I'm not going to mention any names, but
No.
literally think, hey man, come on, maybe it's time to
Yeah. Hang up.
just let's keep the great memories from back then. But on the other
Yeah.
hand, there's some acts out there that
Are doing
that
good. I think what I'm saying is it's sad when some artists are like, I want to try something different, and the fan base just crushes them, and they have nothing, like crickets. You know what I'm saying? That's the worst. They want to change.
Yeah, I get that, but I think as an artist or as a musician, I think you should be above that. You basically do what you do, and don't be afraid that other people won't like it, or other people, because about opinions, man. Everybody has an opinion, right? But
Oh,
it
more
really,
nowadays. There's like 12 opinions from each person now with the internet.
yeah, right. But it's no, I don't know. It's humbling to have that loyal fan base still, you
Hmm.
know, there, and they're there, with Sleeze Beez, and they're great. But also I try to take them with me on the journey that I'm doing, and um, with the next effort. But I really try and do something different, because I think it's just a shame you waste your talent or your whatever on just rehashing the same
Right.
thing. But I mean, it's. I mean, if I personally, if as a non-musician, if I'm just buying a record and I go listen to a record of a band, I'm like, oh, I'll check this out. This I used to listen to them back in the day, and I listen to something that's just basically a one-on-one copy, different lyrics and a different
Right.
solo. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to give that to my fans, whatever. Then I'd rather do something else. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's
And I think that's what your band is now is like it's totally different. I just think it's an evolution of a different sound. You know,
yeah, and
it's
it just happened
like
to
I
come that way.
came.
It's not that I was purposely, forcefully looking for something different, because that's no good either. If you have a style or whatever, and you try and force yourself away from that, I don't think that's good either. But
That
sometimes,
just destroyed a lot of bands though in the '90s when they tried being grunge. When metal bands tried being grunge, That was awful. That was ugly and embarrassing for everybody.
Well, yeah, that's definitely definitely true.
That's a good example of what I'm saying. That you don't want to do that again. We should
No,
learn from that mistake.
yeah, definitely.
I think, but like a good model is actually so you sing for physical graffiti. But the truth of like Zeppelin, like Robert Plant, I mean, they came out, they did a wide range of music, and then Robert Plant goes, "I can't do this anymore. It's not me." And he walked away. He does like country and folk. Like he does. He didn't care. He just walked away and did what he wanted. And that is
Exactly.
the most
It,
artistic thing you can do. Be like, yeah, that's great. I could make billions and millions of dollars in Zeppelin, one of the biggest bands ever. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna go sing with Alison Krauss and do a folk album.
right. Even if he didn't, make millions and millions of dollars, I don't think that I mean, everybody go, yeah, but that's easy for you to do. You're a multi-millionaire, blah blah blah. But
Right.
I know, I don't know, but there are multi-millionaire other musicians that don't listen to their own voice, body,
Right.
and
Oh yeah.
desperate doing what they do. Uh, Plant always said, I can't do that stuff anymore. Back then, that high pitched
Yeah.
stuff, and I don't want to do it. That was then, and even when he went solo,
Mm-hmm.
when straight big log and whatever, it's totally different. But even in Zeppelin, if you look in there, the dynamics of what they wrote and how they wrote it was already very folky.
Yeah.
There was everybody thinks of them as a heavy metal band, but they weren't. Man,
Half their albums were folky.
they were so diverse, man, in what they did. They were just a loud band, not just on stage, but yeah, they were just loud. Management made them that big. Peter Grant was loud, but so for him to, but I have the utmost respect for Robert Plant in the way that he said, you know what, like you just said, I'm going to do something different here because there's no way you can. I mean, he could even emulate or even get close to what they did back then. And I think he knew that straight away. So, and that's a really good example, I think, for that people should look at. But like you don't have to, keep trying to get into those spandex
Yeah.
and on stage and backflips and whatever. You're getting older, man. That's par for the course, and just kind of go with it.
He did it back in like with the early '90s too. So it was in the height of that. So like
Yeah,
the pressure, there was nobody else doing. Like I thought he was bananas because he was the only one doing it, turning away money and everything. Everyone's aspirations was to be like Led Zeppelin. He's like, I don't
yeah,
want to do that. I don't care.
right.
That was pretty awesome.
Yeah,
As a fan of music, and if you can be that way. But I mean, I also want to say like if a band likes being a certain style, they like to still do it, and you're doing it because you want to do it in your heart. Awesome. I like that too. I think supporting it, whoever you want to be.
yeah.
But my reflex is as long as you can be a creative yourself, if you're being true to who yourself, what kind of music you're writing, what it's
But
what you used to do.
right. But don't be the emperor with no clothes. That don't be that guy because that's not good. And that you should know when, or people around you should know when to tell you, hey, dude, come on, try something,
Yeah.
try something, do something else, or stop. It's just a shame to see, a lot of acts go down that route, that road.
Well, I mean, do you think when you were earlier on in your singing, I mean, as you were singing before even Sleeze Beez in your early in your career, were you just going for it? Did you even have an idea, like a plan, like I want to be in a band, I want to be huge, or you're like I just want to do music, and you're more of a musician, or when you're younger, you're thinking I want to be a rock star. You know what I'm saying?
I think the second was definitely, more so the case. Um, from an early age, this was pre MTV. This was all all the imagery that you got was the inner sleeve of a double live album, or a
Yeah.
photo magazine somewhere. That was it. That was
Yep.
it back. So yeah, of course, like, oh, if I play this guitar, maybe I can get in that magazine. That's how simple it was. I mean, I'm much more. I became much more a songwriter, musician as the years went by. But in the beginning, you just got kind of sucked into that, jet stream of, and that's how it ended that quickly as well. You just
Yeah.
got, and then the band's great, and then hey, let's write a song that's about partying, and and because that's all it was about back then. mean, none of those songs had any real depth to them in the '80s. I don't think. Your Motley Crue or
Yeah,
Def Leppard or whoever. Um, they were just about, come on, man, it's a weekend, let's go,
have
and that's
fun.
good because a lot of people just want to forget. They don't want to know about the ins and outs of politics or social reform or whatever. Um, but along comes the grunge movement, and yeah, their lyrics got a little more serious.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe it was time, to stop partying and just or just keep partying, but just be aware of what's going on
I
around
think what happens is just too much. You know what I mean? Like, being a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. If you had one more Z at the end of some band name, you know, you guys
you. Yeah,
came out your generation, and then like everyone else has, there's like you and like two or three other bands that were like did the fun spelling things, or whatever, and then
yeah.
18 other bands after you guys
Well, I
also
think
had.
I mean, all the bands were like that. I mean, Sleeze Beez just before, because I was the second singer that came in
Right?
after
Yeah,
they.
yeah. It was can't
Um,
think of the guy's name. Yeah,
when they started that band, their concept was Motley Crue.
right,
That was their okay. We're going to do something, but I think a lot of bands were like that back then.
right. Yeah,
Poison, and then there was 50 other bands that had their hair like this big and did that kind of party rock. So but that was, yeah, that's just the way that era was, I think, and you just got sucked into it. And then there's, after a while, is here come this younger generation going like, that's bullshit, man. Let's try something different. Let's at least change our clothes and play and drop the do something different. Change the
right.
lyric. The passion in the live show was still there, but it just seemed a little bit more on. It looked honest, more honest than so. I was going to say, so Stone Temple Pilots looked little bit more the real deal than Sleeze
Yeah.
Beez. Same label, and they came along and we were out, they were in. But I think the initial um, reasoning behind that, the record company, was to make money.
Well, right. The first round of grunge was your Alice in Chains, which is like your Black Sabbath, and you got your Stone Temple Pilots, and you got your Pearl Jam. These are all your AC/DCs, your Led Zeppelins, your Black Sabbaths coming out the first round, and Alice in Chains. Then you start getting the copies of the copies, and then those happen faster than with the metal bands of the copies of the copies. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah,
that's why that didn't last as long.
yeah, I
But look
guess
who's around still. All the
it's
first round of bands.
yeah.
You know,
I think so. You're in an industry their sole purpose is to to make money. You know, and
right?
and I think I firmly believe that all the musicians in all the bands, aforementioned bands, they all started out with a with that initial, hey man, let's go make some music, let's go play, and it just turned into a monster, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, but
and
early Alice in Chains tried to be a glam band. Look them up online. They were awful sounding
and
compared to what they became a sound. Pantera's another one. You know,
but and it's all cool, it's all good at the end of the day, it's a at the end of the day, as long as there's good music that um that you listen to, and if you like this band and somebody else doesn't, or you like this song and somebody else thinks it's awful, it doesn't matter. It's just about if you like it or not, I think that's the
I think
main.
yeah, but honestly, I think sometimes like for me, I had a hard time even back then with certain party lyrics, ridiculous lyrics. But there's something about the first album with Sleeze Beez. The songs are so strong. Like the first AC/DC album, like AC/DC can do like the same album over and over again or whatever, and you're like, it doesn't matter. There's something about it. There's something about that album, the song structure, the way you sang it. Because obviously, I've heard the first album done over. I'm not nothing negative about the other singer,
Yeah.
but your vocals did the album, the whole combination. It was a special thing. I mean, it was, what I mean, a special thing at the time that was just a hit.
We had that feeling when that happened too. I mean, there must have been a reason why they got rid of him and were looking for somebody else. But sometimes things just happen. I was ready for something else. I was in a different band and I was looking for something. And sometimes the planets are aligned, or whatever you want to call it, and then you just kind of everything falls into place. It had a certain energy to it, definitely. I think that
It
was
didn't care. It was fun. It didn't feel like you guys taking it so seriously, and your voice was just. I love your voice to begin with. So I'm happy you're still performing it. I enjoy your new band because it's more like you can do high, low, scratchy, raspy, and
yeah,
it's got so much emotion in it. That's why you could sing with Walter Trout. You could do Mercy, and you could do these songs because no matter what you're singing, it had that
right,
emotion. And I think to me, and that's why I'm not knocking the other singer. It didn't. It just felt like some dude just singing it, you know.
right.
But when you did it, it was like you just felt the song differently. The emotion was behind it. I mean, you're a better singer too, but I mean, the emotion behind your voice with those riffs that I don't think people had heard that combination of music like that
I,
because you maybe because you're not on the Sunset Strip, you're separate. So what?
I definitely felt it after a show. Back in the day, there was no holds barred. I just went for it. And I had no idea. I just, I guess I was blessed with that high range, but it was brutal sometimes, man.
Was it? Well, and then you came over and you got to, but you did get to enjoy the rock and roll, you know, good days in the
Yeah.
U.S. during the highlights. So I mean, and then you get to walk away with it. You're like, and now I'm a grown up and I'm alive and I can still do other music now, and I get to enjoy that time. You know?
Oh, yeah, I always tell people there's always these people say, "Hey, man, you're so close, and you guys should have been bigger than you were," and blah. And I'm like, well, dude, I'm just happy that we got to be part of it. I mean,
Yeah,
signed to a major record label like Atlantic Records, and tour, go out on on a short tour with Skid Row, and just witness all these kind of the big do a whole U.S. tour and tour bus and all the stuff that you dreamt of as a kid.
yeah.
Like I said, the inner sleeve of an album, and I'm just oh wow, man, look, they got a shiny bus that they live in. Even though it wasn't all that it was meant set out to be. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, and I'm grateful and happy for that. So I'd never put that era or time in music history down. And people who
No.
go, and that music sucked, man. It was all about the image, man. I'm like, you know what? You have no idea what you're talking about, because
But
all
you guys weren't really an image band though either though, At the beginning, I didn't think you guys were much of an image band anyhow. You were actually more just rock and roll jeans, you know.
yeah, that could be an image too. I mean, I didn't really care too
Yeah.
much. We were definitely not. Now it all gets like thrown into one genre, hair metal.
Right.
That, and that kind of I hate that when they say that because that's just the easy way of just
Yeah,
you
I
know
don't use that word.
thought. Um, but yeah, we did look different. We did at least we didn't have color coordinated hairstyles and stuff like that.
Right. That's the thing. It looks like you just got up, normal clothes, got a gig tonight. Are my jeans kind of clean? You know what I mean? Did I wash my hair this week? Let's go on and do some ACDC type of rock, you know?
Yeah,
And that's relatable to a lot of people. And that was fun. But I think that was just a good moment as an artist to hit something that such creativity and you guys were all firing and you were the right singer with the right music and the right guitars. It was a sound that even just say, I gotta be honest with you, I probably bought two or three cassettes because either wearing them out or breaking them or losing them. Like I probably helped raise your numbers and sales myself alone because over the years, you know, it's one of the albums that still stands out and your voice was just so good and so strong then. And then I get to hear you now and coming across you. I'm like, oh, then I like to see what's current with a lot of artists and there's just so much music out there. I love to be happy and come across that you're doing newer stuff.
yeah,
And that's why I reached out to you because I'm not nostalgia. I mean, I'll
yeah.
take a few minutes about it, but because I don't people talk about Sleeze Beez, but you're still currently active. You're still doing good music and you're still sound fantastic. So, you know,
Thanks.
I think a lot of people should check out all your stuff. You know what I mean? It's a shame you're not able to, I can't check you out because I'm in the States and I've talked about in the show how bad it is for artists to go back and forth and the expenses are ridiculous. So I'm not going to beat everybody up with that. But, you know, but at least you can go online, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and support you that way.
They can listen to it. I mean, they just have to type in 7 miles to Pittsburgh in I can barely pronounce the word Spotify. Then you can listen to it.
Yeah.
I mean that's the
I have my own
global record.
issues with that too.
You can listen to it, and then if you like it, maybe you can purchase one of those ancient uh, things called CD or LP.
And the link will be underneath this too. I want to encourage everybody to go and check them out, enjoy it, and hopefully, to be able to continue doing stuff like that. Um, I do want to say, forget. I just want to ask you one with Sleeze Beez, as the albums changed in the second album, was there an influence? Because I hear like the production sounds different. I think a different producer, more of a bigger time rock and roll White Snake producer, but like the vocals, it felt like they were producing it more like a Def Leppard. It felt like they're changing your sound, and I don't know if the band was
Uh, yeah,
changing or was it the record label doing that? You know what I'm saying?
it's a combination of, we just talked about that, the influence when there's big expectations from the record
Right.
company, and you don't really want to be the guy or the band that goes like, no, nah, we're just going to do this our way, because you just end up in
Yeah,
the street.
I
And
get it. Why?
and it's not like that we said yes and amen to everything that they said. There was a struggle, there was a fight. We're like, no, we're not going to do this, we're going to do that. But uh the the Def Leppard vibe and sound, I think that also came around because we just liked those productions. It wasn't like we
Which is
wanted to
not
be,
bad.
but uh, Pyromania and Hysteria were just such huge sounding albums. I just loved the
Yeah.
production, and I think that happened a lot back in the day. This production wise, it all everything sounded the same. The big snare drum, the big gang vocals. It was a kind of par for the course, and everybody's kind of looking at each other, going like, "Oh wow, that sounds great. Let's do that."
And it did
Uh,
sound good still. It just sounded different. It was like it was just in that one album. That one album change to me. I was like, oh wow. I didn't know if that was like the record label saying we like what you got, but we want to make you sound like what else. You know what I mean? Or were you guys
was
gravitating?
it definitely came from us. It's
Okay.
not a sound like Def Leppard, but we definitely wanted a production that was kind of had that feel, that big, huge sound. I mean, you listen to albums like Doctor Feelgood, Motley Crue, when Bruce Fairbairn and Bob Rock got involved, the Cult,
It was
Sonic,
huge.
they sounded massive, and everybody wanted, hey, I want that sound. You do want to sound like you're playing in a barn on pots and pans. You want that big.
Right.
So I don't, I think it was kind of par for the course back then. Everybody was, a record company would definitely go like, hey, we got this producer, that we think is great. They would suggest a producer.
Yeah.
And obviously, not everybody was available, but that's kind of how that went. I think the third album that we did, the Insanity Beach, was more okay. Well, if we're not going to be part of this, well, if this music uh, genre that we're in is now over because grunge is the hottest thing now, and let's just make an album that we feel great with, and not
Yeah.
not worry. And that's kind of what we did. But yeah, like you said, right in the beginning, you just we fell into it's not pepper, it's not salt. It's something, yeah, you can't really define. And I think
And
even though it's a great album, and I really love that album, and I still really started to get into my own as far as writing
vocally,
lyrics,
yeah.
trying different things. That was kind of liberating, that you weren't stuck with, we need some big arena sound. No, we can just do whatever we want. But it was already a dying cause as far as as for the financial side or the success side or whatever you want to call it. But still a great album, and I think a lot of albums made in that period by bands who kind of the same. Either like you said, they all went full out grunge, which was the wrong thing to do
Right.
anyway, or they
Yeah.
just, oh, let's just make an album that we want to make. And I think there's a couple of
Because you're
gems.
Gun was a little different back then for other rock bands. That was definitely, especially ahead of its time. Nowadays, if you look back at it, you go like, yeah, of course, I hear that all the time. You're like, yeah, but you didn't hear that. And I don't know when that song came out. What was 93, 90, 94, maybe? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? That was not a normal thing to hear. So that was kind of a fresh thing to hear because all those albums did sound different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Which
yeah,
is fun
yeah.
as a fan. It wasn't like I heard the same album every time. So I do listen to the second album, but the third album feels like totally different to me. It feels like it's like we did this, let's do this now. Like I didn't know if the band was just like we just want to keep trying things, or we want to Like we like the sound, let's add it, or we're just, you know what I mean? I was kind of wondering the path of the songwriting because each one is so different, and it continues on with you now. Like you're always evolving to these sounds.
It's something that you once you've done something or you've built something or you've made something, it's you're always kind of anxious or just interested in maybe trying something different. You don't want to eat the same meal every day. You want to after a while. It's like okay, enough with the lasagna. Let's try something different, right?
I agree with you. I mean, lasagna is really good if you do it right. But I couldn't eat it a lot, to be honest with you on that one. But I hear you. I think that but it's true. I mean, that's I think as a fan, and I don't know, like not everybody looks at it the same way. Like for me as a Sleeze Beez fan, I like the fact there was a variation. I like the fact you do other things now. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
like that. And I think the evolution of you now to what you're doing now is a lot of fun. And I think so people obviously have to be over in Europe or in Holland in the area to see you play in physical graffiti, right? That's pretty much
that's
it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know the thing with tribute bands is that every area or every country has its own version of a tribute to whoever,
Yep.
right? There's so many out there. So, with Led Zeppelin, we're just kind of limited to the Netherlands and Germany, which is bordering country, and we do some shows in Denmark, but and it's fine. You know what? We do about like I said, 40 shows a year with this band, and we'll be playing really cool venues.
Yeah.
And I get to fulfill my urge to get up on stage and belt out some vocals. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm doing somebody else's stuff, but it still feels like, in a way, it's a really good band, man. I mean, it's a really good band. We have a really good, like 15 years together. It's probably the longest I've been in a band. And
I think you
they
said like in a relationship because it is almost like a relationship, you know?
because it feels good. That's all I can say. It's sometimes I sometimes we come off stage and I don't feel like I've just you know done a tribute, and that's a good feeling. The musicians are all kind of in it, and you can do that with Zeppelin. You can go kind of
Because Zeppelin, because some of the songs about Zeppelin are just so good, and it sounds so cliche to say that, but if you're a songwriter, like when I started playing, I used to sing in bands, not any well, like you know what I'm saying, but like I got older, I started playing guitar, and then when I started playing guitar, I started even being into music or whatever, production stuff. Start taking the songs apart, even songs I didn't like. I heard you hear in the elevator the music version of it. Music, you're like, oh, it's awful. Then you say someone, oh, let me just play that riff. And you're like, oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. So when you start taking apart songs like Zeppelin and stuff, you're like, oh, these are really good songs on another level. And to me, it makes it more fun because you're like, oh yeah, I get it now. I get why it's fun to play this song a lot because it's a good song. It's written well,
yeah,
you
but
know?
especially when you've done it for a while, you kind of lose the idea that oh yeah, I'm playing a cover because you've done it so many
Yeah.
times. Uh, but that's a good thing because like I said earlier, trying to get gigs for your own music, uh, your new band, as it were, 7 miles to Pittsburgh, it's rough, man. It's just really hard, and it's not music that relates too well in a small bar for some reason. So
No.
I'm do. It's not that I don't want, I want to play huge venues, but I want to play a venue at least that has, some cool lights and we can do some visuals and just, put it at on a certain level. So it's tough, and so it's kind of a catch 22, that I get a lot of gigs and on the other hand, I don't get
Right.
any gigs.
Well, I think it's a problem. Your band now is you're right. It's not a bar band. I mean, that would have been a cover band. Another, I didn't have a rock band. A young Sleeze Beez. You're like the next venue where it's either a nicer dinner theater or a nicer thing where you can listen to the music. You can
But
enjoy the rock on some level.
just a venue that you can do, a show, because,
Right.
we have an engineer. I go out on the road. I have my own sound engineer, own lighting guy. If that means I don't make any money that evening, then so be it. But I want people to see this band and go like, wow, that looks good. That sounds good. Instead of, yeah, we saw this band last night, man. I can't remember, man. We had too much to drink, because there's a time and a band and a place for
Yeah.
that. But I just don't feel it's that band. So that's my choice or our choice. That means we play a limited amount of shows, usually around when the album comes out. I
Yeah.
can get a party at a nice venue. People come out and check it out, and then maybe a festival or two, and then that's it. But that's fine because I find a lot more. I get a lot more out of writing and the whole recording process. I mean, I enjoy that, arranging and I'm like, hey man, snare needs to be half a dB softer in that,
Yeah.
pre-chorus. And drive the other band members nuts, but because you at the end of the day, you're holding something. You're holding something
You
physical
created.
that you created, and that's forever. Unless the sun explodes, but it's there for whoever wants to listen to it in the future. And that means more to me than making money off it or success at the end of the
No,
day.
I get that. I think, and so you have a new album coming out that people come forward to. Like, what are we looking for a time window for people that are just new to checking you out now? And if they can't see you, is there a chance you might do something like either not like a stream or pre-record something or a video, like some kind of live, some kind of visual show where people can see you that are in the U.S. You know what I'm saying?
So,
Or
see,
elsewhere.
I have we've recorded some stuff in the past, and maybe I'll put a little promo clip, as they call it nowadays, together and just put it online. But yeah, I think if we do like an album presentation or an album release, whatever, I mean, nowadays it's really easy to put it on the
I mean, you can do
internet.
it on your own and put it on your site. I mean, I just feel as here's this is me. I don't know
Yeah,
how like the world, but as a fan, and I start investing in other bands now. If I hear like good 12, that's fine. But if I'd like to have some kind of visual show, if I can't see you in concert, I'd like to somehow see you. I don't need to see a video with you up on a mountain in an eagle, you know, carrying your guitar to you. I'd love to see you just sitting down on a nice live situation, or even a pre-live situation that you can do production on it, and see you at least as a band perform for real, like visually as a fan. If you can't go to it,
I think that ultimately is probably the only way to go now in this day and age with, look at us, interviewing each other or
it does, but it makes an investment in me. Like
that's
I feel more invested in the band visually.
that I mean that's the way to at least, the handful or a couple of hundred or whatever, how many people that are really interested and like you said, can't come to Europe or can't come to Holland to see the
Yeah.
band.
Oh,
To
would I love to though? Oh, would I love to?
but yeah, that definitely might be a good idea, or might be it's a great idea to incorporate that into a release. And the venues here can really accommodate. Most of them have
Yeah.
those already built in, where they have the cameras and
Right.
whatever.
I mean, because I've seen you guys do your promos, like I mean, obviously you know how to handle it, and I guess about the money, but for me, even like visually, you hear an album, one song. You see, you guys have one or two albums out, right? You hear it, but nobody knows it visually. You want to be able to visually when I hear a band, I want to be able to like do this, and that's why like this kind of interview, like, is not such a nostalgia thing. I'm gonna ask you a few questions about Sleeze Beez because there's fans that ask about it, but it's really about you as an artist, and it's like knowing you who you are now. It's easier to understand the artist and kind of feel more connected.
Definitely
You know,
that, but it's just also really like you said, we got two albums out already, and people are probably, there's going to be people going, really? How come I don't know about that? But that's because everybody can release an album, record an album, publish an album, put it on Spotify. That's just everybody's like, oh, that's great. We have this new technology. Facebook is great. We can promote our own stuff. We're not dependent on all these big, yeah, you and everybody else. So now all of a
right?
sudden, talking about creating a monster, it's just
But
me so overwhelmed with uh, talent, but also with not so.
garbage. There's a lot of garbage out there.
It's
I'll say
really
that.
hard. Really hard to to throw out the line and get a good catch. It's getting increasingly.
But there's not a lot of bands that do live stuff though. Live video. I mean, how many times I know you're Foo Fighters too. How many times have you seen like the Foo Fighters like just stop and get sucked into like the Foo Fighters at Wembley or something? You see a live clip of a band, you go back to it again. There's something about the energy that kind of takes you out of the moment. And
Yeah.
so I think bands should do more of those. That's why I think you guys should have stuff like that because then it's like it just feels different for people, you know? I think it
Yeah, but
helps give it, I
Foo
gives an edge.
Foo Fighters at Wembley Stadium or 7 miles to Pittsburgh at, at wherever is
Examples. That's the only band I know. Like it's an easy band I know you like. I'm not saying sales. A good song is a good song. The point
yeah, yeah,
is, if you're a
yeah.
fan of the band and you like the
I
band, that's just an example. I know you like Foo Fighters. That's what I'm saying. Like it's easier to connect to a live
it
or some kind of visual.
shouldn't be an excuse. The fact that the whole music scene is so overwhelmed shouldn't be an excuse not to do it. Definitely.
Right. And I find myself going back to even smaller bands. I'd rather see a live video or a visual video of them as much as I can than big bands because of that. I think I enjoy it. I don't know how many other people like that, but
I'm
it's a
pretty
thought.
sure you have to look at how many likes that certain
Yeah.
clips have. There's clips out there that's like ridiculous amount of, but that's it. It's not like nowadays. It's not. You don't go to a record company or whatever with a demo. You go with proof of how many likes you have on your Facebook account. That's
Yeah.
that's
Oh, I've heard stories that platinum artists have said they wanted to get do a solo thing, or their band this band had like two platinum albums at least in the '80s, right? And they wanted to talk to a label. And the label goes, "How many likes you have on your Instagram?" These guys dominated MTV, and they had like two platinum albums. I'm not saying they're gonna be as big. They've already shown that their resume looks pretty darn good already. They've already had it. They already have an audience out there.
the more that keeps going, the more that the limited amount of record companies that are still actually, I'm talking about the smaller labels now,
Yeah,
Frontiers and labels like that. Thank God they're still there.
yeah,
Uh, Provoke, whatever. They, the more that they kind of just limit themselves to, come back to, hey, you got anything that sounds a little bit more like Sleeze Beez?
yep,
And that ultimately, I mean, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, the audience that we were talking about earlier, the older audience that now have, money to go and see
yep,
a band, relive, this nostalgia. I remember when, I
yep.
love the night and whatever. They'll be gone. Then they won't be there anymore. And then what? And then, you know, there'll be a void of creative, new musical ideas and whatever. I think it's already there, you know. And like I said, the whole tribute scene, which I'm part of, and then it just there'll come a moment where it'll just implode, and there and then I'm hoping I won't be here anymore, but I'm hoping that will be, that'll be the moment that the guy finds the guitar, in 2112.
Pulls it up to the monkeys. The apes hold it, right?
When I touch it, it brings forth a sound. And I
Yeah,
hope that people will go like, "Wow, that's cool," instead of going like, "Don't annoy us further."
and it's so hard because I don't want to be like the guys like it's gonna be electric guitar because I'm like listen to Spanish guitar, listen to linko, listen to an ukulele, listen to something live and just tones and warmths and woods and metal. You know what I'm saying? And just there's so much to
Something,
hear.
something I wouldn't say not something new, because with all respect, the '80s wasn't new. It was just Zeppelin,
Oh,
on steroids, and but there was excitement, there was energy, there was
yeah.
dynamics in the music business, and it just seems to be going a little flat at the moment.
It's gone, and I think Spotify put and even I have this podcast on Spotify. I don't really put a lot of effort into it because I put it out there because here's the thing,
Here's
and
Spotify,
you know this
man.
as an artist, you don't want to go, yeah, right. Well, I don't listen to it myself, but as an artist or anything, you want your fans or whoever listens to you to do it. So on my show, if somebody has Spotify and that's what they listen to, I'm not going to not let them listen to it. I don't really put a lot of effort into it. I'm on every other podcast and YouTube. So, I mean, that's a weird thing as an artist, you're kind of stuck on some level, you know what I mean? But Spotify's crushed it.
you
So,
know it's the agony of choice, out of the frying pan into the fire. Back in
yeah,
the day, you even though you were signed to a major label and it looked great and they were investing money in you and you've gone out on tour and there was tour support and blah blah blah, you were still dependent on them. If they decided, hey,
Right.
guys, no, we're done. We're not releasing a third album. You were done. You
And they didn't say it was an investment anymore. It was a big, you took the biggest personal loan ever. You were $500,000 in debt.
But it
It
wasn't.
changed. You didn't know that at the time, though.
Thank God it wasn't a personal loan. It was, there was nothing. I mean, luckily back then it was, recoupable through sales. So if the record
Yes.
company sell the album, it was there.
Some
It
bands
was
got hit real bad the way they were invested, though. It was a nightmare.
talking to you. I wouldn't even have an iPhone.
That's awesome. So I actually, I want to wrap this up. I just want to use it as a go-to point once again. Physical. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Are you in a museum?
Yeah, my whole house is a museum. Like I said, this is Spotify, Andrew Elt style behind me.
I love records. I have a ton of records too. I probably be big as Jethro Tull and Yes, Deep
Yeah,
Purple collection on vinyl. Yeah, oh yeah, I love records. That's the way. But
my
before it got
record.
cool, when I was a dork, I've always been a dork. I just
Yeah,
kept them. You
yeah.
wait long enough, you become cool. It cycles.
I still have them, and I still buy them, and I'm glad there's a. I don't know how it is in the States, but in Holland and where I live in my hometown, we have the biggest record store in Europe. I mean, it's
Oh, wow.
huge, and people walk out of there with grocery bags full of stuff, and
Oh,
it always
that sounds dangerous.
hard when I see that. It's still there's still hope, but unfortunately, it's my generation. It's the older generation, and then
Right.
and you know, it I just hope that whole Spotify thing just implodes, man. I think it's just so ridiculous, and
You know what Spotify feels to me? Like. So remember when vinyl first came out? It was super heavy. It was like a weapon. It was like cut someone's head off. And then it got so cheap. The record companies got so cheap that the records got so thin, and it only put an ashtray if your record to them. That's what Spotify feels to music to me. Like it's getting so thin. Now records come out now. They're back into like just about a gram. Like they're thick again. I'm hoping Spotify is like the thin record time we're having, and it's going to kind of evolve back into thick records again. It's going to go away. You know what I mean?
I think what I don't. This is what I don't get. It's just my opinion, right? What I don't get is all the big artists, right? I'm talking like Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, uh,
Yeah.
the Rihanna, whoever the more modern stuff, Adele, whatever. They, I mean, they don't have to worry about making any money, but Spotify is the least amount of money that they're making.
Yeah.
They should just go like, you know what? I'm going to use the F word here. Fuck
Yeah.
you. We're going to pull our albums. You're not allowed to play them anymore. That'll get rid of Spotify real quick. And
It
unfortunately,
would have to be a lot of big artists though, because a few of them have done it though. Remember?
sorry.
They would have to be a lot of artists though. Remember, like Neil Young tried it. He
Yeah,
relented. He had to go back.
right. There's got to be, they've all got to get together and go like,
Right.
let's just do this, man, because this is ridiculous. I mean, not so much for them. They don't care. That's why all those artists, the huge, big artists, are selling their, publishing because
Yeah.
they can't make any money off of it anymore. Give us the bulk of money and we're done. And the only money that they can really be made is, through, if you get played at the NBA playoffs or a football game, but
Yeah.
not all anyway, and or you get a movie or TV series,
Yeah.
that
That's the money right now.
but Spotify, come on, give me a break, man. When Snoop Dogg's complaining that, he's got like 10 million streams and he's made like, $3,000, for $3,000 for me and for you would be, hey, cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
At least, I got a month or 2 months worth of rent and food here. But, Snoop Dogg, come on. You just go like, no, I'm going to
I
take
know.
this. You want to buy a Snoop Dogg record or
Yeah.
download it or,
Right.
give it $5 instead of at least you're making some kind of money, If I sell a record or a CD
Mhm.
myself of my own band at a gig, I make $10. One record. You know how many Spotify streams I need to get make $10.
Uh, I don't think you've ever
And
made that many, probably, right? Has all of your projects ever made that much money?
well, I mean, well, it depends. Like back in the day when with the big record companies had so much money to invest because potential return was big because they wouldn't
Right.
sell a minimum of 200,000, 300,000, and if you were lucky, it was a million plus, and then they would get their money.
Right.
As an artist, then maybe you'd make some money at if
I'm saying, but now your streams are all. If everything you've done has been streamed, really the return on everything nowadays with Spotify, nothing. You know.
I just think it's just a shame because besides the money and the return and whatever, you should be more honest and give the artists what they deserve. It's just killing music because how can you afford to go into a studio and record music to release? And
You can't.
luckily, do it on a MacBook Pro.
People hit the website, support the band, new albums being written, new 7 Miles album, and maybe we'll even see some kind of performance video down the road, couple
Yeah,
2 3 years, maybe something.
idea, and I
You know,
think those for the 16 people out there that are really interested in my stuff, it doesn't matter one or a million. If there's one person out there that shows legitimate interest in what I do, I appreciate that. And if I can help in any way by showing them, a live stream or whatever, then let's do it.
just a thought. I'm just a guy that was I'm just a dad to Moses Law, and I likes rock and roll, and it's grown for me. So people do watch it out there somehow.
Same here.
But
All right.
I'm a big fan. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. People check them out. Hit the links below and support the band, shows, get the merch, whatever. Support them. Thank you, man.
So,
All right.
man.